Hey, good evening, everybody. This is the Pay Me No Mind show with your host Wood. Kicking off with a new episode. This is probably going to be centered around a recap of the last 2 weeks of Stars and Stars show Power. But I like to try to group things together, so I invited a special guest on today. So, brother, I just met. His name is Greg Kaysen. I'm gonna refer to him as G. How you doing, G?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me.
Great. G actually took a moment to check out an earlier show me and my brother did, and just in getting with him, I felt like he was an interesting brother. We'll get into some of those things that I find interesting about him, but we're going to jump into some NBA Summer League play, NBA 2015. Just to recap what's going on now that the draft's passed. We're seeing some of these young kids for the first time. We also saw some pretty big performances from some second year players. So we're going to go into our top three interesting NBA storylines, I guess, from the summer league. So we'll get into that in closing. Really quickly, I always like to send a shout out to my partners, the One Take podcast family.
You're tuned in to a One Take podcast production.
All right, so we're doing this one. This is not in my normal place where I record. I'm actually at G's crib. Thank you for welcoming me in my little portable studio.
A little bit of a guerrilla feel today.
Right, but hey, it works.
Yeah.
So what's up, man? I didn't ask you what you do for a living, but what was interesting, you don't have to share that if you don't want to, but what was interesting to me, I really appreciate the fact that you and some partners are in the process of putting together a craft beer business. Yes, so if you don't want to go into the name of that right now and where you guys are with that, that's fine, but maybe you could at least talk to me about the craft beer culture in general. I'm a big fan of it. I know we have sneaker heads, hip hop heads. I don't know what the correct term is for the craft beer
Society,
community.
Yeah, I don't know if there is like a PC term for it. I think everybody says something different. Beer snob, beer head,
right?
Beer enthusiast.
That's probably the most proper one, is beer enthusiast.
Yeah, I try to use that one. I don't like to refer to myself as a snob, but...
Right. On the way over here, I stopped at the store to get some a craft beer, and I'm kind of new to it, but it is one of my new things in life, and I just wasn't sure what to buy, and I was like, dang, I hope they're not beer snobs, because I don't want to just show up with something and I leave and you like, man, your boy Wood.
We don't want that stuff.
Right. No. So I brought over some Lagunitas. Yeah. It's in there right now. I'm taking in something new to me. What was that again?
Hop Nosh.
Hop Nosh.
Yeah, by Uinta out of Utah, I believe.
Okay.
And so just to kind of like flip back to what you were saying, like who I am and whatnot, like my quote unquote 9 to 5. I actually am in childcare. I do in-home child services. I'm Manny, if you want to be a jerk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I pay the bills for the past year and a half, almost 2 years.
Okay.
On the flip to it, the beer thing, Crafted Pints Brewery, that's been in the works for roughly 2 years now.
Okay.
The short version of it is it's been a roller coaster of unexpected and eventful things that had us at a place where we thought we knew we were going to be definitively, which turned into a pitfall, which turned into going downtown and we're settling now between two locations, one downtown, one a little bit closer to home. We would like to be somewhere in the Huber area. I just don't know if it's going to work that way.
Okay.
But once we get a location nailed down, we'll go back to fundraising, and we can really, the investors that we've got ready, they just need to know where we're going to be before they can cut us a check, which doesn't, it's not a bad thing. It makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we've been doing that. Our head brewmaster, Jared, he's been doing it for about 10 years, and Mike and I just kind of came in as guys that live the lifestyle in the sense, like Mike and I chase it. We travel.
Okay.
Sad to admit, but excuse me, we've become those guys that will stand in a line for 20 and 30 minutes to get a beer. I used to make fun of those dudes like, you're crazy, man. I'm not wasting 30, 40 minutes of my day to get a beer.
Right.
Nah, like when KBS came out, which is this special release from Founders, I just happened to be driving past a place I knew was getting it. I was like, it doesn't look that long of a line. I'll hop in there. And yeah, so I mean, it's a passion. For me, I think just being a part of the beer community is what really made me say I want to do it legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
You meet all walks of life.
Hey, I agree.
In craft beer, and nobody bats an eyelid at you. Nobody second guesses or has an immediate opinion, and that, like, was very refreshing to me, to say the least.
To be honest with you, something like the beer community is something really, when I look at what's going on TV, I don't know if you saw yesterday, we had the showdown in South Carolina with the people that wanted to support the Confederate flag, right, and some of the blacks, some of the black community down there. I know here locally, I guess I saw a picture on, I'm not sure if it came from the Dayton Daily News Instagram page, but it was about 12 trucks out in the parking lot in Beaver Creek at the mall that all had the flag, the U.S. flag and the Confederate flag, and they were trying to make some type of,
saying that's the history of where we,
something like that. And I get all that, but I'm just saying, I get torn when I watch what's going on in from the various news outlets. But then when I rub elbows with people in the beer community, wherever I'm getting a growler refilled and whatnot, and all the different people that I talk to, it just doesn't seem like we're really that far apart.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if I could completely go in that direction, but yeah, I mean, as a African American male that is traveling to places where it looks like you're in the middle of nowhere, or where you would not be surprised if you saw a Confederate flag.
Right.
It is very refreshing to get handshakes and welcoming conversations.
Right.
And not have to really worry about it. And I mean, I've been all through Michigan, all through Ohio, Illinois, like Chicago. Mike's got family in St. Louis. My buddy's got family in St. Louis.
Really quickly, so our mutual friend is a cat named Mike. Mike is actually the person that put together my new logo for me and my logo on my former podcast. So Mike said he had a partner that was really into sports and entertainment. So that led to me inviting Greg to be on the show. So that's when we keeps mentioning Mike. Mike is the guy that, like I said, that provided my new logo.
And that was the tie there.
Right. So really quickly, before we get into my little entertainment piece and then the NBA stuff, with the craft beers, now, are we strictly talking about IPAs, or are you guys also, or are you personally a fan of other beers above and beyond the Buds, Miller, and Michelob, all that stuff?
Right.
What is actually your passion in this craft beer game?
So my favorite style of beer is a stout.
Okay.
But I drink all of it. With the exception of maybe like sours and barley wines, which I'm trying to really learn to appreciate. Like there's a beer judge that we know, and he's kind of like trying to take me under his wing. Like, you're just not drinking them the right way. You're not tasting the right thing. So, yeah. But I mean, as far as the brewery, we plan to make everything.
Okay.
And I guess like you were talking about Lagunitas. Lagunitas is a fair example of kind of somebody that we've looked at as a benchmark, or somebody that we look up to a certain degree. I'd say them, Dogfish Head, and Brewdogs, which those three breweries all kind of take traditional styles and then put a flair on them, do something different that's not run-of-the-mill or everyday average. And Lagunitas in particular, they just make all of their beers are good. Like I'd say like, I don't know that any of their beers are bad, and they're all reasonably priced and fair in alcohol content. So you get bang for your buck, you get taste, you get flavor, and that's something that I think we're trying to do. And then with the Dogfish and Brewdog side of it, that's just the adventurous side of it, the ability to say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, why not put coffee in this IPA? Or why not add some rose hips or coriander or something crazy that, like, most people will be like, just goes in food into a beer.
Okay. So that's cool to learn that I did make a decent selection in the beer that I chose to bring over here. It was like, bringing wine to dinner if you guys would have invited me over for dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this is the Pay Me No Mind show with your host Wood, and I'm on with my guest G. Okay, so we got through some of the introductions, and I'm also hoping that G is back on in the future. I'm honestly a little jealous. Maybe it sounds like G actually has a great radio voice, so that's a good quality to have. But thanks for being my guest, man.
I appreciate you having me.
So
it's been said to me before, yeah.
Okay then. And I'm comfortable in my manhood, to look at you and say, this brother has a nice voice for radio. Moving from something like beer, which is closely related to entertainment and sports, before we get into sports, we talked a little bit earlier about some different TV shows, and this might be part of my power recap. But if we run a little long, I might just put this up as a standalone show on the beer community, some entertainment, and then this NBA summer stuff. Yeah. So one series, you're not a big fan of Power. Really quickly, you said you gave it a watch. What didn't bring you into the tent on that one?
And I'll preference by saying that I didn't maybe give it as fair of a watch as would be required to really be like, I hate this show. So I wouldn't say that.
Right.
It just seemed, from what I saw from it, like they tried to take a very everyday plot and try to twist it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if you can really execute it. I just don't know that I believed in what I saw, that I was getting those performances that made me really try to pay attention or invest myself to a character. But again, it was very early in the show, and so I'm not saying they didn't develop those bonds, just it didn't pull me in.
Right.
And I don't like things that are like, I feel like I can tell you what's going to happen right away.
Now, did you give Empire a shot this past year?
I watched some of Empire, and I'll probably finish that show. There was a lot of singing. I don't know how I feel about. I'm not a big musical person, but they were well written songs. It's not
right.
They had stars writing and performing those songs. So
Timbaland was obviously behind the production of most of it. I asked you that because we talked about earlier. I do like Power. It's kind of, as a married man of a number over a decade, you look for different things to do with your spouse. Right. So we've kind of adopted power as a Saturday night thing.
That's what you guys do. That's sure.
When we're more likely to be sitting at home versus going out, partying or clubbing and whatnot. So it's been cool to me. I do have some issues with it, but I'll say this. I think there's a difference in the storytelling